Good morning. Thank you all for joining us at Grace today. It is good to be with you. My name is Nate Nims. If we haven't met just yet, it is good to be together in worship. And if this is your first time with us at Grace, either in person or online, thank you for joining us and for being with us today. Together, we're going to hang out for about an hour in this service, singing some hymns, reading from Scripture, sharing in the liturgy, and praying with one another. And we'd love for you all to stay connected with the church throughout the week as well. So you're invited to find us on Facebook, on Instagram, on our website at gracedesmoines.org. And there you can find a copy of the bulletin for today's service and the full order of worship that we've got. And in that bulletin on our website, there is a list of supplies that we are currently collecting for UMCOR. UMCOR is the United Methodist Committee on Relief, and every fall they collect packages of school kits and personal hygiene supplies, and we are collecting those items. We've got a couple boxes that are filling up in our coat room with all of those supplies, and if you want to help us collect items for UMCOR, it would be great, and we are hoping to have those collected throughout October, and then we'll give them to folks around the world at the start of November. Also, following our service today, we've got a bit of a ministry fair in the activity center downstairs right below us, so you can spend some time learning about different things that are going on around the church. We've got a few tables set up of ways that you can get involved and learn about some different activities going on here at the church and put a face to one of those programs and events as well. Now, as we start the service, we are going to welcome some new members into Grace. Mike, Michael, and Judy are going to be joining the church today. We did have another person that was going to join us. Eden is her name. She's not able to be here today. She might have been exposed to COVID late last week and hasn't got her test result back yet. So keep Eden in your prayers, and she'll join us at another time. But at this time, I'd invite Mike, Michael, and Judy to come forward, and we'll share in the membership liturgy together. And it will be up on the screens for all of us to follow along. I'll give you copies of it. There you go, Mike. There you go. Yeah, we'll just have you turn around and face your new family. Oh. In this membership liturgy, there are vows that new members take, and then there are vows that we take together. And so, for you all, on behalf of the whole church, I ask you, do you renounce the spiritual forces of wickedness, reject the evil powers of this world, and repent of your sins? Do you accept the freedom and power that God gives you to resist evil, injustice, and oppression in whatever forms they present themselves? Do you confess Jesus Christ as your Savior, put your whole trust in His grace, and promise to serve Him as your Lord in union with the church which Christ has opened to people of all ages, nations, and races? And according to the grace given to you, will you remain faithful members of Christ's holy church and serve as Christ's representative in the world? And now for the congregation. Do you, as Christ's body, as the church, reaffirm both your rejection of sin and your commitment to Christ?
We do.
Will you nurture one another in the Christian faith and life and include these persons now before you in your care? With God's help, we will proclaim the good news and live according to the example of Christ. We will surround these persons with a community of love and forgiveness, that they may grow in their trust of God and be found faithful in their service to others. We will pray for them, that they may be a true disciple who walks in the way of life. So, members of the household of God, I commend these persons to your love and to your care. Do all in your power to increase their faith, confirm their hope, and perfect them in love. We give thanks for all that God has already given you, and we welcome you in Christian love, as members together with you in the body of Christ, and in this congregation of the United Methodist Church. We renew our covenant, faithfully to participate in the ministries of the church by our prayers, our presence, our gifts, our service, and our witness, that in everything God may be glorified through Jesus Christ. So let's welcome Mike, Judy, and Michael to Grace. And got a certificate of membership for you and a name tag as well. So thank you for joining us at Grace.
Thank you.
Also, this morning, we are celebrating the trip that some of the youth took to Paris over the summer. There are a number of pictures out in the hallway that you can take a look at after the service, but we've got Heather and Patty and Ellie and a video that we'll share as well. But before that video, you want to come on up and say a few words about the trip.
Good morning. Well, my name's Heather Wilcoxon, and I am a youth parent, and I had the good fortune of being able to be one of the chaperones on the trip, and I feel incredibly grateful, and I want to say thank you, because I know without your generosity and support, it would not have happened. Just a quick little 30-second snippet on how and why we decided to go to France, because typically this is a Wesley Heritage Tour and we go to England every 6 years. We were supposed to go in 2020 and 2020 was canceled. I know not just for our youth group, but for pretty much everyone. So France was actually going to be a part of our trip to England last year. We were going to spend 4 days there. So we already had that part planned. And our goal in early 2021 was still to go to England. And we continued to watch the news, watch the World Health Organization, and we were looking to see if England would let us in without requiring a 2-week quarantine. And we really pushed the envelope a little bit, and we continued to, hope that that would happen. But unfortunately, we got to about 6 weeks out from our departure, and France was kind of our only option there. So we already had that planned as part of our original trip, and so we decided to go ahead and make the move, and we planned a trip in 2 weeks overseas with 16 kids and 4 chaperones. So thank you very much, and I'm going to let Patty and Ellie speak now.
Good morning. I think is it Mike, Judy, and Michael, our new members. One of the things that we have at Grace that is really exceptional is our youth program. So welcome to Grace, and I hope you get to meet some of our fantastic youth as you go on your journey here. We, like Heather said, planned an international trip in 2 weeks to France. And it wasn't ideal, but it turned out to be a perfect trip. And before I say anything else, and we said this last week to a Sunday school that we spoke to, every one of you would have been so proud of your Grace youth. These kids, because of COVID, had to turn on a dime about every 3 days. And we had a long trip planned to the coast, and we were going to be there for 3 days to see some amazing stuff. And we realized that we were in a small province that spoke a dialect of French, and not the regular version and realized we were going to have to leave to get back to Paris to get 20 of us tested so that we could get on the plane and get back home. So they missed a big chunk of the trip to sit and get COVID tested. And we told them at 1 o'clock in the morning when we found out that we were going to have to leave at 5. And not one kid said anything negative. They said, we are so grateful to get to go anywhere. And at 6 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning, all 16 kids totally packed, standing, ready to go. Not one time did these kids ever complain. Like the 4 of us who were chaperones really can't say enough about how amazing these kids were. And we just want you to know you would have been so proud of them. So that was really cool. The only other thing I'm going to say, I'm just going to list a few places we went. We had a t-shirt made. Ellie Nahman made our shirts. And they do have John Wesley on the front, but they say in French underneath them, where there's a will, there's a way. So that was Carrie's brains on that one. Yeah. And the reason we don't have very many kids here is because of the 16 who went, 12 of them are, no, 10 of them, right? Anyway, most of them are already in college. So we had the seniors from 2020 and then the seniors from 2021 on the trip. And so they're all gone. They've forgotten us by now. We did have Nate sent with us about 500 little communion things, so we had a lot of good devotions. Michael was in charge of our devotions and did an amazing job. And when you go out in the back, there are pictures of our trip, and they are censored for the most part. So raise your hand if you've ever been in France. Wow, that doesn't surprise me at all. Okay, so you all know how beautiful it is. Here are the places we went. The rest you'll see on the video. We went to Normandy on the 4th of July, the Seine River cruise. I'm going to massacre anything in French because we all had to learn it in 3 days. We went to the catacombs, the Louvre, Montmartre, Versailles, Sainte-Chapelle. We drove rental vans through France to the Brittany coast. The kids got to swim in the English Channel. We went on a ghost tour. We went to a great bookstore in Paris called Shakespeare and Company. We went to Notre Dame. We didn't get to go in, obviously, because of the fire, but we at least got to see it. And we had a lot of great memories. So thank you to everyone. And Grace Youth is still filling all of our hearts. Thank you.
My name is Ellie Nahman, and I'm a junior at Roosevelt. And although we weren't able to go on our usual Wesley Heritage trip, we were extremely grateful to be able to travel to France, especially after a year of complete isolation. Thank you to everyone who made this possible for us to go this year.
Good morning. My name is Ellie Wilcoxon, and I'm a senior. I wanted to thank the congregation for allowing us to go to Paris, just in, like, not only in general, but also during a pandemic, because that's insane. And it's all because of, like, the congregation that I've had the opportunity to go anywhere within the youth. I've been to Detroit, I've been to Montana twice, I've been to Hawaii, and now I've been to France. And I think that's honestly crazy. And I just wanted to thank the congregation for allowing all of us to do just all these amazing trips.
So a number of the students that graduated and couldn't be here also wanted to share some of their thoughts and memories and thanks about the trip. So we've got a a brief video of them sharing their thoughts. So go ahead.
I'm so lucky to have joined this church. I've only been here for about 2-3 years, and I just feel I feel right at home. Everybody's so welcoming and helpful and just selfless, and so big thanks to the congregation. As far as my favorite memory from the trip, I have to either say when we went to Utah Beach on the 4th of July. Utah Beach was really special for me. I had my great-grandfather was the general of a tank battalion on during World War II, and he was on Utah Beach at one point in time. And so I was able to see that for my family, and I actually got a little jar of sand from Utah Beach, and I was able to bring that back for my father, who was very emotional and very, very happy for that. So thank you.
I think forever when I'm asked to go to my happy place, I'll return to the small park at the end of Champs-Élysées, where we sat and had a picnic and laughed about our many metro misfortunes, our unexpected favorite moments, and at times our inability to run on a schedule. The love that came over me in that moment and that continues to spread over me when I relive it was nothing short of God. So there were a lot of religious moments, excursions, and careful effort was definitely put in to making this a trip that taught us about what it means to be Methodist and that reminded us the foundations of Christianity. So the beauty is intoxicating, and the sense of togetherness at experiencing the sacred things that we did was just very overwhelming. And it is love, and to me, I don't know what love is but God. So I experienced God while I was sitting in the park picnicking with friends. I experienced God while I was out playing ultimate frisbee on the beach in a rare moment of calm during the trip. And while we were playing, the sun just parted the clouds, and so you could see in the distance the white crabbing towns that lined the coast and the cliffs that were overtop the English Channel. So then I also experienced God lighting a candle for my family back at home at Sacré-Cœur.
Just a few of my absolute favorite moments from the France trip. There were so many great options, but the vast creativity on display at the Louvre was incredible. The peace and beauty resounding through and around all of Sacré-Cœur. The tranquility and reverence of the beaches in Normandy, and all the great memories I made with such a wonderful group that went over this.
This trip was so special to me as it was my last as a member of Grace's youth group, and because it was so impactful. Stepping into Sacré-Cœur and into Sainte-Chapelle was amazing. Seeing people from all over the world gazing up at the stained glass and praying, and knowing that people have been doing that for hundreds of years before me and will be doing that for years after me was so impactful. Sitting in the pews at Sacré-Cœur was unlike anything I've experienced, and again, I feel so incredibly blessed to have had this opportunity.
I wanted everyone to know just how amazing Paris was and how developmental it was for everyone who went, especially me. And when they asked what some highlights would be, my mind immediately went to three things, which for me would be devotions, Sacré-Cœur, and the Louvre. For those of you that don't know, every day we started our day out with a little bit of scripture reading and talking from Michael Gukin, the choir director, and we called it devotions, and we did our little travel communions, and it was a great way to start every day with intention and for us to remember why we were there. You know, it wasn't just a vacation, it was an opportunity to learn about the faith that we grew up in and to develop our own faith. Which leads me sort of to my next highlight, which was the day that we went to Montmartre and Sacré-Cœur. It was, you know, everyone struggles with faith, that's part of it, and, you know, as a teen, I'm obviously unsure about a lot in my life, but we were walking around Sacré-Cœur, which is this amazingly old and grandiose church that sits on the top of a hill overlooking all of Paris, and we walked in and, you know, the nuns were chanting, and candles were burning everywhere, and As I was walking around, something just possessed me to light a candle for my grandma who had passed in January. And as I was sitting down in the pews and thinking about what that meant to me, it just struck me this overwhelming feeling that she was there with me in this church and overlooking me and just kind of comforting and saying, you know, I'm still here and I'm in a better place. And this amazing church facilitated that. So for me, it was kind of like an aha moment. Like there are some very real things happening in this church, and it was just an amazing facilitator between me and, you know, the essence of my grandma. So that was one of the most powerful parts of the trip for me.
It's very hard to just pick a few highlights to share with you all today because it was such an amazing trip full of so many new adventures and experiences. But I'd say the three things that stuck with me the most would be Sacré-Cœur, our trip to Normandy, and then just being together as a group in a completely new city. Sacré-Cœur holds so much beauty inside and outside. It's the highest point of the city, so it overlooks all of Paris. And then when you just walk in and see all the stained glass art, candles lit, and hear the nuns chanting, it brought me a sense of peace and belonging, a feeling that I didn't think I would get from it. And then our trip to Normandy holds so much power because I went in with very little knowledge about what took place on those beaches and then came out with a profound appreciation and understanding about what really happened. And walking through the beaches, through the museums, and through the cemetery just really made you grasp what went on. And then lastly, just being together in Paris. It brought us all so close to each other, and then doing daily devotions, scripture reading, and our little travel-sized communions each morning done by Michael really got us off on the right foot for the rest of the day, which was super helpful.
Thank you to the church for donating and for giving us your blessing to go into a place that none of us had ever been before, and to see that God's love is spread everywhere. We went into these beautiful, beautiful churches that I never thought I would see in my lifetime. And you walk in and it's you feel something when you walk in, and everyone in our group felt it, and all the tourists feel it, and it's just incredible to see that God's love is spread across the entire world.
One of my favorite things from France was going to a bookstore called Shakespeare & Co. and I bought back a lot of books from that store, and that was probably one of my favorite highlights from the trip.
The trip to France was such a blessing. I'm so thankful for the amazing opportunity. I made so many memories I will not soon forget, so thank you. One of my favorite days of the trip was the Louvre. It was so sick to see all the marvelous paintings and try to pick out each and every detail, which is what Isaac and I spent the whole day doing. Not a single inch of space was wasted on any of the paintings, which I found to be mind-blowing. Isaac and I didn't even end up making it to the second floor or even seeing all the floor we were on. We were just so enthralled by everything we were seeing. Another thing I will remember was just going out and walking around in the streets and experiencing a different daily life that I've never gotten to experience before. Everything felt so alive and rich with history, and I will not forget it.
It was so amazing to be able to be with the people I've loved and just explore a new place with them and really kind of connect to a new place. It was a life-changing experience to be able to go and see a whole other part of the world.
This trip overall was a great opportunity for us to grow and learn about our faiths and form bonds with such a great group of people. One of my favorite things was our morning devotionals led by Michael, where we would meet as a group and talk about the activities and things that we'd seen the day before and just reflect on everything about the trip and be in a setting where we could all openly talk to each other about it, which was absolutely amazing. Michael would then give us a piece of scripture that we would have for the rest of the day to reflect on and just kind of lead us and guide us through that day of activities and what we were seeing, which was amazing and really kind of kept us grounded since it was a new environment and everyone was probably out of their comfort zone for a lot of it, but it was absolutely amazing and a great experience.
I want to give a huge thank you to everyone in the congregation for your constant support of youth group. Your guidance, your assistance over the last few months was so integral and so important to all of us. And you made sure we had the best time possible. And I want to make sure that you know that we appreciate that so much. So thank you guys.
So thank you to the congregation for allowing me to experience this journey, which has forever changed the way I see the world. It's helped me to understand my own spirituality and grasp the love that God has for me.
I can't express how thankful I am for everybody that had a part to play in that, so just everybody in general. So thank you guys so much. We love all of you guys, and hope you guys are all doing well. Thank you.
I'm eternally grateful for all the help from the congregation in giving me and the rest of the youth group this opportunity in these weird and wacky times we're living in. Thank you so much.
Without you, none of this would have been possible, and you gave us the trip of our lifetime with memories that will last forever.
And I want to say thank you to our chaperones, Patty and Nathan, Heather and Michael. We could not have done this without you. You guys were great leaders throughout the whole trip, keeping us all together. And then a big thank you to the congregation. We could not have done this without you guys. The love and support you gave us the past few years trying to get this trip was absolutely amazing, and we could not have done this without you guys, so thank you so much.
And they had about 20 more minutes of things that they wanted to share with you as well. I felt really guilty trying to tighten that down to their top highlights because they just kept going on and on thanking you and talking about the different highlights of the trip. So thank you all for helping to make that trip happen and for the impact that it's had on those students' lives. And with that, Laura will now lead us in our call to worship.
Jesus, our lives can feel cluttered. We are driven by the need to succeed and distracted by all that needs our attention. When it feels as if we have lost our way, by your Spirit, clear our minds, open our hearts, and focus the attention of our souls. Let us, like Mary, find the one thing that is needed so that we too can rest in your mercy and love. And now we will have our first hymn, Take My Life and Let It Be. That's number 399, and you can look at the screen or you can get out the red hymnal. All right, we will hear the opening prayer. Loving God, you are intimately acquainted with the ways our hearts break when we are not fully known and accepted. May our lives be a reflection of the love you express within yourself, that we will come to a place where we cannot help but love, and to know this love fully for ourselves, the people who surround us, and the earth which we inhabit. This love is an extension of who you are, the source of our kindness, which turns love into love, into love, into love. Amen. Our scripture reading this morning comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 10, verses 38 through 42. Now, as they went on their way, he entered a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. She had a sister named Mary who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to what he was saying. But Martha was distracted by her many tasks, so she came to him and asked, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her then to help me." But the Lord answered her, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things, but there is the need of only one thing. And Mary has chosen that better part, which will not be taken away from her."
This part of the service is going to look a little different, and that's because we had some internet access problems at the church over the weekend, so our live stream failed, and what we're sharing with you at Wesley Acres is different because of that. So this is a new recording of the sermon, but I am just so thankful that you are worshiping with us at Wesley Acres, and I can't thank you enough for being with us in worship right now. Now, if you've been with us at Grace, you might remember that we are doing a series of sermons on emotionally healthy spirituality, and this is our last sermon on that subject. We have been talking about what it means to grow in spiritual faith, because we become more spiritually mature as we become emotionally mature. If we deal with our emotions in an immature way, our spiritual growth will not mature. And we've seen through the book of Psalms in these past weeks together that all sorts of emotions are discussed. David, as they write their Psalms, shares every feeling that they have, trusting that God can take them on. Then last week, if you were with us, you might remember that we talked about the power of the past, how our family of origin, how our history and our culture, it all shapes our emotional responses to things in different ways. We all learn how to react to life together. And sometimes if we're not aware of those automatic responses that we have, we bump up one another and we interact in ways that aren't the healthiest. You can think about it like this. Take the word fine. If I ask you how you are and you say fine, you might actually be fine. You could all be happy. You could be fine. But you could also be seething with anger. Everything could not be fine, but you said fine. So what am I supposed to do with that? And how do we move forward together? There are all sorts of ways that our past and our family of origin and our culture and community influence our future. So we have to be emotionally aware of that so we can move forward together. That's of the utmost importance because together as a church, we're adopted into the family of God. We become a new kind of family with one another. And as we learn what that looks like to live into this family, we have to figure out what the rules of this family are, how our lives will be shaped and transformed by grace and peace. So that's the journey that we have been on so far. And as we wrap up this series of sermons on emotionally healthy spirituality, we're going to talk about limits and boundaries. Limits and boundaries are what we are going to look at today because we all have them and we all need them. Each one of us has a priority or a goal for our life. Even if your goal is not to have a to-do list, that goal is on your to-do list, right? We all have something that we need to accomplish. And if we don't set limits and boundaries in our lives to help us reach those goals, we might not get there, because our schedule will start to dictate our priorities instead of our priorities shaping our schedule. Now, in the Gospels, Jesus has moments where he sets limits and boundaries with others. There's a moment at the beginning of the Gospel of Luke where Jesus is in a city called Capernaum, and people are there telling Jesus to stick around, to stay. Jesus is healing folks, and they say to Jesus, "Stay here." And Jesus says, "No, it's my time to move on." So Jesus could have built a kingdom in that city, but then the kingdom of God, as we know it today, might not have been the same. Or there's a story in the Gospels where Jesus meets a man named Legion. And Legion, they give themselves this name because they are haunted by many demons. Just about anything that can take this person down has afflicted him. And so he has been shunned by his village, sent off to the edge of a cliff to live with pigs. This person, Legion, is healed by Jesus. They are restored to health and wholeness. And because of that, Legion says to Jesus, "Please let me go with you. Let me be one of your disciples. Let me travel with you." And Jesus says to Legion, "No, you need to go home. You need to go home and tell your friends and family and the people of your community what God's grace and love has done for you. You can't travel with me, but you can and you should travel home." Jesus has a limit for what it looks like to be Jesus's follower. Some follow in this way, others follow in another way. And if Jesus has limits and boundaries, if Jesus lives with expectations for himself and for us as followers, how could we ever imagine that we should not live with limits and boundaries as well? So our story today, our reading from the gospel, is about Mary and Martha. And it's a very interesting story because Martha sort of gets a bad reputation from it, which is odd because biblical scholars have shown that hospitality was one of the cornerstones of a cultural ethic in the ancient Near East. This was an era well before fast food and hotels and all the travel amenities that we are used to today. So if someone came to your village and needed your help, it was expected that you would provide it. People took care of one another and welcomed them into their home. So Martha is taking care of things around the house, and Mary is sitting at Jesus' feet. And Martha is a little annoyed that Mary hasn't helped her set the table and make things comfortable. So she says to Jesus, "Tell my sister to help me." And Jesus says to Martha, "Mary has chosen the better way, this one thing that will not be taken away from her." Now, what is interesting about this story of Mary and Martha is that it comes right after a parable that Jesus teaches, one of the most well-known parables that Jesus shares, and that's the parable of the Good Samaritan. Right before the passage about Mary and Martha in the Gospel of Luke comes this story of the Good Samaritan, this story where Jesus says what it looks like to love your neighbor as yourself. And you might remember the setup of this story. There is a young man that comes to Jesus and says, "What must I do to inherit eternal life?" And so Jesus says to the individual, "What have you heard?" And so the person responds, "Well, of course, the greatest two commandments. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself." But wanting to justify himself, this young man says to Jesus, "Who is my neighbor?" And it seems like they ask this question, "Who is my neighbor?" not because they want to know who they can help, but who they know who they don't have to care about. Because if you know who is your neighbor, you can easily decide, well, that person isn't my neighbor. They are none of my concern. So Jesus tells the story of the Good Samaritan, this parable that shows us that hospitality and care for one another can and should and must rise above our cultural and religious differences, that as followers of Christ, as children of God, everyone is our neighbor, and so the health and safety and security of all people is of our concern. That is the start of Christian ethics and how we care for one another, how we love each other as we seek to love God also with our heart, soul, mind, and strength. So that's what Jesus tells right before this parable of Mary and Martha. Right before Jesus goes to see Mary and Martha, Jesus tells this parable of the Good Samaritan. And as you read the story of Mary and Martha, or at least think of that in the back of your mind now, between the two of them, who was acting more like the Good Samaritan? Mary, who was sitting there doing not much other than listening, or Martha, who was making sure that Jesus and the disciples felt welcomed in her home? Now, here's what I find fascinating about this text. To sit at someone's feet in the ancient world was to be their student, to be their disciple. Now, most of the time in the Gospels, almost every single time in the Gospels, the title of disciple is reserved for men. And that's because in the ancient world, men were almost exclusively, and frankly were exclusively, disciples. Women had too many other things to take care of to be able to have the time to sit at the feet of a teacher and be their disciple or their student. But Jesus welcomes Mary to sit at his feet. Jesus bestows on her in that action this title of disciple. Mary is a follower of Jesus. She is a student of Christ. She is a disciple. And by telling Martha that she has chosen the better part, that Mary has made this choice and this one thing will not be taken away from her, that's Jesus' way of telling Mary and Martha, you are worthy. You are welcome here. You can have a place in my family. You are my followers, and no one and nothing can take that away from you. And sometimes we get caught thinking that some people are better and some people are more worthy and some people are in and other folks should be left out. But Jesus shows us that everyone is welcome and everyone is included. This story of Mary and Martha is not really about comparison, about who's doing what and how that is better than something else. It's a story of completion. It's a story of Mary being able to rest in God's grace and know that she is welcomed and loved, while Martha seems to run away distracted and preoccupied by many things, feeling as if she has to prove she is worthy and loved. Martha is living in comparison, while Mary is living out of the complete love that God has for her. Now, in our lives, when we don't have good limits and boundaries, when we don't have our priorities in shape and are living to achieve them, we live much more out of comparison than completion. We can find ourselves like Martha demanding that other people do this or that, when instead we should be like Mary, recognizing that sometimes we have to run around and serve others like the Good Samaritan, but other times we simply have to rest and know that we are loved. And we can tell the difference between those times more and more when we become emotionally mature. When we live out of the complete love that God has for us that reminds us we are welcome to sit at Jesus' feet. That as followers of Christ, that is a priority, just like loving our neighbor as we love ourselves is. But sometimes we have to do one thing so that we can do the other. If we are always serving, always searching, always caring, eventually we get fatigued. We can only give as much as we have to offer, and we can only refill our spirits if we take the time to rest in God's love. Sometimes we serve, other times we rest, but in all times, God is with us, reminding us to have those limits and boundaries that let us know this is the time for that, and now this is the time for that. We can separate those areas of our life and faith and know that God is with us and it will be okay. And the more emotionally mature we are, the more we can rest in that knowledge that we're complete, we're loved, and God trusts us to know what time it is. Is it time to serve or is it time to rest? Is it time to heal? Is it time to gather stones? You know that story from Ecclesiastes, that passage of a time to tear down and a time to build back up. What time is it in your life right now? What season do you see yourself in, and how can you know that in this moment God is with you because God is right there? Now, there's a parable that another rabbi once told that has stuck with me about limits and boundaries, so I want to share it with you as we wrap up this sermon. One day there was a woman that never quite knew what she needed to do. She tried different things around her small village, but nothing felt quite right. She just was stuck and couldn't figure out what her role is. But one morning she woke up and it was just an epiphany. She knew exactly what she needed to go and where she needed to go to. She had a goal in mind and she didn't want anything to get in her way. So this woman got out of bed, got dressed as quickly as she could, and started walking through the path in her village. With every step she took, she started to move just a little faster because she finally knew what her purpose was in life and nothing was going to keep her from it. So eventually she is sprinting through the city streets on the path to her goal when she comes to a bridge in the middle of town. On the other side of this bridge, she notices that there is someone, a stranger, that is running the opposite direction towards her, and that stranger has a rope in their hand. And the woman's not really sure why, but she's not going to let that concern her. She's got a destination in mind. She knows where she is headed, so she's going to get there. But as this woman and this stranger cross paths in the middle of the bridge, the stranger says to her, "Would you mind holding this rope for me for a second?" And the woman thinks, well, I've got somewhere to go, but I can stop for a moment, and I might as well catch my breath because I have been running, so why not? The woman grabs a hold of the rope, and then the stranger ties it around their waist, and they jump off the bridge. All of a sudden, the woman is holding this rope while the stranger is dangling off the edge of the bridge. And there's a bit of a fall between the bridge and the water, and the woman is scared about how she can hold on to this rope and if the stranger will be safe in her hands. So the woman says to the stranger, What are you doing? And the stranger says back, "Don't worry about it, just hold on to the rope." But the woman says, my hands are slipping. And the stranger says, "Please, don't let me go. My life depends on you. You have to hold this rope." And as this woman struggles, she tries to look around on the bridge to see if there's any way that she could tie the rope on, but she can't. So eventually she figures out that she can tie it to herself. So she is now connected to this stranger hanging from the bridge, but she's stuck. She can't pursue her goals. She can no longer continue down the path. She's just there on the bridge wondering what to do next. Now, there are no other strangers coming or going from the bridge, and so the woman tries to take some steps back to pull that stranger up, but she just doesn't have the strength to do it. The stranger is hanging from that rope, saying to the woman, "My life is in your hands, don't let go." And the woman is thinking about the choices that she has, because she can let go, and she can see this stranger fall into the waters below, or she can stay there on that bridge, stuck to this stranger, never able to continue down the path. She can disappoint this neighbor, or she can disappoint herself, and either decision that she makes will be devastating, not just disappointing. But eventually, the woman realizes that she's not the only one with a choice to make, that the stranger has a choice to make as well. And so the woman says to the stranger, "I know my life is in your hands, but I cannot make this next choice for you. I need your help, and I'm willing to help you. I will help you, and I will pull you up as best as I can, but I'm going to need you to help me too. I'm going to need you to pull yourself forward, and if we work together, we can both be safe." But the stranger says, "No, it's too risky. If you slip, if your hands aren't strong enough, I will fall." And the woman says, "My hands are only as strong as they are right now, and you seem to be okay. If you've trusted me this far, will you trust me even further?" And the stranger says, "Just keep holding on. We can figure something else out." And the woman knows there are no other options. She can stay there on that bridge with the rope tied around her waist, holding up this stranger, or she can pursue the path that she set down on, but she can't do both. So the woman says to the stranger, "I mean it. I cannot make this choice for you. I have made a choice to help you, and I will help to pull you up, but you have to make a choice to work with me. If your choice is to hang by that rope on the other side of this bridge, I will respect it. And if your choice is to climb up this rope with me, I will respect it. What choice do you make?" And the stranger shouts at this woman, "How dare you? How dare you? My life is in your hands. You can't let me go." And the woman says, "I respect your choice." And she starts to untie the rope from her waist. And as she's holding it in her hand, she says to the stranger, "I'm not tied to you anymore, but I'm still holding on. I'll be your counterbalance. I will help to pull you up, but you have to pull up as well. I've made my choice. What about you?" And the stranger says to her, "My life is in your hands. Don't let go. Let's do something else, but please don't let go. Just keep holding on." And the woman says, "I respect your choice, but I also told you mine. I wish you the best and enjoy your swim." And with that, the woman let go. The stranger falls into the water. But now this woman can continue down the path and finally reach her destination. Now, there is a good chance in your life you are holding on to a rope that isn't yours. And you might be thinking that every choice depends on you, but the truth is, it doesn't. We are not the only ones that make choices. We are not the only ones that have to make decisions, but we do have to decide what our limits are and what our boundaries are. Are we going to pursue the path that God has placed in our hearts, or are we going to remain stuck, stranded in the middle of the bridge, holding ropes in every direction because we think it's up to us to hold everything together? God is with you. And over and over and over again in the Bible, God says to us, "Don't be afraid. You are loved. Trust in my strength." So if we don't have to trust in our own strength, if we don't have to hold on to every rope because we feel like we have to hold all things together, what if we remembered that God is holding the strings together? That God's grace is always there. What would it look like if you didn't have to cling to the rope because you remembered God's grace already was clinging to you? There are ropes that you can let go of. There are things and situations and people that you have to trust to God's grace, and there are decisions that you have to make, and there are decisions that other people make that you have to respect, even if you don't understand them because they made them. And sometimes there's a monkey that gets loose from the circus, but it's not our monkey and it's not our circus, and I don't know about you, but I don't want to be a carnival barker the rest of my days. We have choices to make. We have limits that must be made because of that. And if Jesus lived with boundaries and knew what time it was, when the time was to serve like the Good Samaritan and when the time was to rest like Mary, who are we to say that we can't do that? If Jesus lived with boundaries and modeled this emotional health of knowing that sometimes I have to do this, but other times I must do that, we must seek to live with that same level of emotional awareness and certainty, so that we, just like Mary, can know that we are complete in God's love. We don't have to earn it or achieve it like it seems Martha was trying to do. We can simply know that this grace is with us and we will be okay. Because you will be okay. God's grace is with you. So whether you need to serve like the Good Samaritan or whether you need to rest like Mary, know that God's grace is sufficient and God's love is already yours. And whatever rope you are clinging to, prayerfully consider how you can trust it to God's grace, how you don't have to hold it with your own strength, but by the strength of the Spirit that will always be with you. Let us pray. Loving God, thank you for this time that we have with one another. Even though we are physically distanced, we are together worshiping you in spirit and in truth because you know the depths of our hearts and the love that has brought us to this place, because your Spirit sustains us, your love guides us and leads us down the path that we need to follow. So help us to follow your path and not be distracted by every rope that we can cling to along the way. Help us to have emotionally mature limits and boundaries that let us pursue the path that you have for us, so much so that we can tell what time it is. When it is time to rest like Mary, and when it is time to love like the Good Samaritan. When it is time to rush around the house like Martha, or when it is time to simply be with others like Jesus was with Mary. God, in this week to come, show us what ropes we can let go of and show us what time it is so that we can be the people that you need us to be. We know that we are made complete in your love and that your grace is sufficient and that even when our strength fails, your Spirit will sustain us. So sustain in all of our hearts and lives the emotional maturity and growth that you want for us. This we pray through Christ who taught us to pray, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. I want to thank you for worshiping with us at Grace and for connecting with our church through this service that is available at Wesley Acres. It truly is an honor and a privilege to be able to worship with you each week. If you would like to financially make a contribution to the ministries of Grace, you can do so at gracedesmoines.org, or you can always mail your offering to Grace at 3700 Cottage Grove, Des Moines, Iowa, 50311. In the United Methodist Church, the tradition that Grace is a part of, we make a promise to share our prayers, presence, gifts, service, and witness with one another. And only one part of that vow is financial. So maybe you can offer some prayers for the church this week. Maybe you can seek to be present with others just like Jesus was present with Mary. Maybe you can serve, and maybe you can be a witness that helps show others some truth this week. Perhaps that could be your offering. And if you do give a financial gift to Grace as well, I cannot thank you enough for your support because you are with us, and that means the world to me. As the service comes to a close now, we'll join in our final hymn, Let There Be Peace on Earth. And we pray that this peace might begin with each one of us, that like Mary, we might have the peace that lets us sit at Jesus' feet, knowing that we are complete and we are loved and we are accepted as disciples and followers of Christ, and nothing can take that away from us. So let us sing this peace, and then let us live it in the week to come. Amen.